forgiveness of self. It was easy for me to forgive others. I forgive my dad. We didn't even talk about it. My dad shot my mom 6 times. We didn't talk about the man that raped me. I was so innocent in a lot of ways, but I was so damaged because I had grown up in so much fear, so much violence. When I was adopted at age 6, I thought my mom was black. I had no clue. And my adoptive mother said, your mother was a white teenage girl. I had secrets. My mom had secrets. Your listeners have secrets. Well, I had to take away my secrets because I could not afford the secret. Most of the time is you're concerned about the external reaction to the revealing of the secret.
You started by saying I'm a survivor. What does it mean for you to be a survivor?
What it means is...
Welcome back to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here by now. I love to have real, raw conversations with some of the most impactful and influential people on this planet, whether you know of them or not. But today I have an individual that I'm really looking forward to jumping in with. We had to reschedule our show last minute because of some tech and some timing issues, but he was on my live show, and in that 15 minutes, he just absolutely brought it. Ken Miller is an author. He's a speaker. He's a man that just shows up and is giving in so many ways. But he also is somebody that wrote a book. And I'm going to just read you the title of the book because I actually really like it. And it's going to explain a whole lot about even areas that we may go today. Becoming Ken, one black man's journey from Ivy League to prison and back again. This chronicles his powerful story of resilience, redemption, and authenticity. And here's the cool part. He's adaptable, he's adjustable, he's kind, he's influential, and he's on a mission to be able to impact lives at the highest level possible. Ken, my friend, it is so good to have you here with us today.
Oh, man, it's great to be on here, Brian. I'm so looking forward to this.
Well, you were on the live show, and I think you maybe know this is coming, but the only question I ask every guest on both shows is, independent of however I've introduced you, whatever I've said about you so far, Ken, who are you in your words?
A survivor in many ways, an individual that has continued to grow. I'm a kind and gentle man today. I wasn't always. And I'm just curious about life, about the processes, the transformations that happen within me and other individuals that I work with. I'm a lot of things. So we'll go get into that. So
yeah, again, I don't ever expect that that's going to be confined into just a singular word, right? But what I also appreciated is you actually did answer who you are and the ways that shows up in your world, not necessarily what you do. And I do think that's a powerful distinction. You know, I'm going to go to what you said out of the gate. And I do believe that the nuance and meaning of words really all is up into the interpretation of the person who's speaking it and the person who's receiving it. So yeah, we have definitions, but things can mean 50 different things. You started by saying I'm a survivor. What does it mean for you to be a survivor?
What it means is that many times when people are faced with incredible, profound danger or threats to their physical or spiritual, emotional well-being, many people don't survive those. What I mean, they don't get to the other side. They don't get to the other side either physically whole, they get killed. I was in a situation where I should be dead. It's just, that little. And then also many times they don't survive or they don't come out of it emotionally or mentally well. And so that's what I mean. I've survived those. I've come over to the other side. And, we talked about this a little before. I'm well today. I'm well. And that makes me a survivor.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate as well that you even defined what it actually means to survive. Because there are people who go through really difficult situations and are alive on the other side of it. But to your point, they don't end up surviving emotionally, mentally, or in some other way that has an impact. And it's even a part of my story. I mean, when I shut off physical pain, when it exceeded my ability to cope, when my left arm was torn from my body, I shut off mental pain, emotional pain, and spiritual pain for 25 years and didn't realize it. Right. And it was having a ripple effective impact in my life. And yet I was a survivor and I did heal physically, but I wasn't healed emotionally from a lot of the wounds that I carried with me for 25 years. I had to put work into that part of the journey. And so for you to be able to distinguish those factors means you've also experienced it yourself. You know what it's like to come through and physically survive. You also know what it means to have the emotional and mental toll and what it requires to actually heal those components as well. So we're going to go deeper into components of this as we unpack portions of your story, but I'd like you to maybe just take us back as far as you want or as can remember and tell us a little bit about who Ken Miller was before all the stories that can be written about you today.
So the 30,000, foot view is real simple. My mother was a white teenage runaway in New York, and my father was a black pimp and drug dealer in New York. I'm the byproduct of that union, we could say. My mother, having a biracial child as a 17, 18-year-old wasn't happening at that time as a runaway. And so I was put up for adoption at birth. I did foster homes for 6 years. I've talked about this before, but I was damaged when I was adopted at age 6. I got adopted by Irene and Sam Miller, lived upstate New York. I was precocious as a child, and I did academically very well. By the time I was 17, I was a National Merit Scholar. I was accepted to Dartmouth and also Harvard, chose to go to Dartmouth, and graduated there with a degree in, I always say, fraternity, with a minor in drinking. 2 years out of college, I was in the corporate world. I was sober, but then I relapsed, and I was to spend the next 20 plus years on the streets as a homeless addict, alcoholic, criminal. I've spent 3 stints in state penitentiary, spent years behind bars. But mainly I was homeless and in treatment centers and not a contributing member of society. I got out in 07. And when I got out of 07, I had no skills. I had nothing physical, but I had a mental state that was good. That was really good. I had 3 years on the last prison stint, and I got out. I was clean and sober. And I just September 23rd of this year, celebrated 21 years clean and sober. I own 5 businesses, and I'm very, very successful, but there's more we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But I do well now. And that's the story, a real high level view of
No,
Ken
I mean,
Miller.
so by the way, thank you though, because you hit the tops of the waves and helped me decide where I want to take this just a little bit. I actually do want to start at the very beginning for just a second.
Sure.
And I, by the way, I rarely ask anybody how old they are. And sometimes I realize socially that can even be inappropriate. But for whatever reason, I felt the need to ask you, how old are you today?
I'm 62.
62. Yeah. And so why I ask that and bring that up, and I think it's even more relevant, you talk about the dynamics of who brought you into this world and the time that we were at in this world. I mean, early 60s was also the height of Martin Luther King, the height of a lot of the racial tension that was going on in our country. And whether we want to get in, I don't talk politics and religion often, so we're not going to go down this route today. But yet you were in a time that was extremely divided, and you can very clearly articulate the byproduct of who you became as a result of your parents. My question for you is, but I think even the dynamics of what you said, it's like a single mom that was a runaway, right? And your father, with all of the labels that came with the way you described him at the time, there's a lot that you come in with right out of the gate. So you were in foster care and with child. I'm curious though, did you ever know your parents? Did you live with your parents? Did you have memories or experiences with either of them?
No, you talking about my biological?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So my biological put me up at birth. She got to hold me
at
one
birth.
night.
That's what I didn't connect the dots with. So she put you up for adoption at birth right away.
Right.
Did you ever meet them?
Yes. I met my mother, which was
how old were you when you met her?
Most profound. It was 10 years ago, 9 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So we're skipping a whole lot in the story here, but you were starting to say it was the most profound. Take us to that moment. What was it like to meet your mom for the first time in your 50s?
It was incredible. It's in a lot of ways, it's unbelievable because she lived 2 miles from where I grew up in upstate New York, literally 2 miles away. But she didn't live there when I was there. But when I went there, so you have to picture an older white Irish woman.
Yep.
And because she's Irish and I'm Black Irish, I tell everybody.
Yep.
And so we sit down over, cabbage and what is that? Corned beef and cabbage, real Irish meal. And I'm sitting, with my biological mother, who I've never met. And I'm showing her what little pictures I have of me as a child, because I have nothing before the age 6.
Yeah.
Because I was in
Yeah.
the foster home. And I showed her a picture and she says, I met you. I'm like, what did you say? She said, I met you. She had come up to visit her brother who lived in Bloomingburg, New York, went to drop off some food to Elizabeth Potts's house, who I call Aunt Betty. There's only 3 Black families in the whole town. And this was the only Black Catholic family. Of course, she's Irish Catholic. And she went to drop and she said, I met you. And this is my mother had seen me as like an 8-year-old, didn't know that was her child because he just went to drop. But she took one look at
But
me.
she saw the picture and recognized you.
I saw the picture and I had never mentioned Aunt Betty. Why would I? I'm here to meet her.
Yeah.
So to get that, there's so many dynamics within the family relationships. There's so many secrets. And, that was a secret in her family. There was a few people who knew, obviously, but it was a secret. And, I've lived with secrets my whole life. And, but anyway, it was beautiful to meet her. It was beautiful to spend time with her. She only had 2 more years before she passed away, but she was so happy, to have met me, to meet her son. She always had, wondered what happened to me, but the way the foster system is set up until the DNA came out, there's nothing we could do,
Right.
to meet each other. It was against like the laws or the rules.
Right. So I love that you were able to even talk about how you guys got connected,
Mm-hmm.
but you haven't seen each other for 50 years.
Yeah.
You're obviously interested. You're intrigued. Like,
Yeah.
what was the most profound element of that experience of meeting her? Either an aha, a connection, an understanding, what was the power of that interaction that still sticks with you today, or that stood out or stands out for you?
The power is I could forgive her.
Yeah.
Because I had thought that she threw me away.
You thought she didn't want you.
And I didn't understand the dynamic. So you got to understand, when I was adopted at age 6, I thought my mom was Black. I thought it was a Black woman that had given me up. I had no clue I didn't know that till I was like 16. And my adoptive mother said, your mother was a white teenage girl. And it blew me away. Because you create a picture as a child of what your mom looks like, your biological mother looks like.
Of course.
And I pictured this Black woman.
Well, and I mean, you've got darker skin, so of course, in your mind, it's like, well, of course my mom looks like me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even think in terms of biracial or mixed. I didn't have that. And so when I sat down with her and I wanted to understand her story. And once you understood her story, you can understand why she put me up for adoption. She did it. So you got to understand. So remember, my father is a drug dealer and pimp.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say my mom was a prostitute. I have some thoughts on it, but I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yep.
So she's living with this man, lived with him. Okay. And she has my child. She gets pregnant. And then she said, I thought you would grew up with the couple I met, because a couple came in to adopt me. This is a true story. This white couple who wanted a child and have a teenage white girl. They adopted me, and she was not supposed to hold me for the night, but they let her hold me. And then the next morning she meets the couple because she wanted me to grow up Catholic. She's Irish Catholic, large Irish Catholic family. And the couple that adopted her was a white Irish couple. And then it shows in my paperwork that I was born on October 15th and then of 1962. And in January of 1963, I went back into the foster care system because the tan didn't go away, we'll just say. And I'm not mad at those folks. That's not what they do. Because remember, this is all a facade. This is all a facade. Yep. This is even the adoption or a couple adopting. They'll make believe that this is, their child And, this is their biological issue. And so again, my mom was surprised when she found out, that I went back and I did 6 years of foster homes. And so
because that was never her intent. Yeah, that was never her intent.
And just, some people wouldn't have had the child, from that background would not have happened.
Yeah.
And, it was just fascinating. And I asked her about my father, and she lied. And that's to protect her until I found out other information from other family members of quote unquote what the truth was. But that worked for her. And even when she told me her story, I sort of knew some of this is not my experience, because I was to become a drug dealer and a pimp. I didn't know my father was one, but I became one later on. And so I know that world. And so she told me some things and I'm like, hey, cool. If that works for you, hey, I'm cool with that. I'm saying that to myself. I'm not saying that to her.
Yeah.
I just wanted to build that relationship, and I built it.
Yeah.
And, to this day, I'm the, I take care of my niece and nephew. I handle their money. She allowed me to do that, and it's a substantial amount of money. And, I was blessed to be able to do that and to do some things for her before she passed.
I had zero intent of spending this amount of time on exploring your mother and the relationship with her. However, it is so telling in so many ways. And I find it fascinating because even to the point of they talk about nature versus nurture, right? And I'm a big believer that so many of these things we get unconscious conditioning on. They've also proven that trauma passes through the DNA, like even the patterns of some of the stuff that we'll unpack that you described about yourself later. But to have never met your father or your mother until 50 years old, and yet you also lived a life that you became in the same lifestyle, in the same dynamics that they were in, despite the fact that you did get adopted, you did have a different family. It's fascinating sometimes how these things work. And I appreciate your ability to even suggest and understand finding her story to be able to forgive her for it. You discussed, and one of the things you said when you first started talking about her is you said, I've lived most of my life with secrets. Now, I'm not going to ask you to tell us all the secrets. You've shared with us already a few, but I do believe that secrets serve a place in many cases. But what I also know is that, at least in my own realm and a lot of the people that I've worked with, secrets can also have a cost and a weight to them the longer that you carry them, depending on where, who, or how they come out in the world. And so when you say and can identify, I've carried secrets for most of my life, what has been the cost or the weight of those secrets, or where have you been able to find freedom in them?
So secrets are a protective mechanism to the individual that has the secret. That's the reason they're a secret, because they believe that it will protect them from pain, whether it's physical, emotional, intellectual, whatever type of pain, spiritual pain.
Totally agree.
So we have a secret, which is all a secret is information not revealed for specific reasons. Okay. So I had secrets. My mom had secrets. Probably most people I know, your listeners, have secrets.
Still do have secrets. Yeah.
Right. Well, I had to take away my secrets because I could not afford the secret. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't deal with the self-talk that came from the secret. Because remember, a secret most of the time is you're concerned about the external reaction to the revealing of the secret. Well, my pain internally was greater than your external, what I believe would be your external reaction to me sharing the secret. So therefore, at some point I had to make a decision to reveal the secrets and let the light shine on them and take the chance, because it takes courage, the willingness to absorb the possibility of pain, because that's what courage is. And I had to do that first with a counselor, then with a small group, then with larger groups of people.
Yeah. We teach this concept that the second you protect yourself, you disconnect yourself, right? And in all reality, it's even tied to the exact same things. What are we protecting ourselves from? the emotional and intellectual beliefs of how someone else might react to us, contain us, minimize us, shut us down, right? All these things. And that real freedom exists when you get yourself to a place where you have nothing to justify, protect, or defend about yourself. Which also doesn't mean that you live completely transparent with every single person in your life, but that you can and will talk about any of the secrets, no matter how dark they are, with anybody should you need to, or if it comes and arises. And so I loved how you answered that, because you're right. They're designed under the guise of control and safety. And yet most of the time, you even just hit on it, I couldn't afford the cost of my secrets, because the pain that you carry typically in those secrets sometimes can be far greater than the external side. So I even appreciate how you navigated that. You know, I love that you also hit the tops of the waves in your introductory early on. You know, you went to Dartmouth, you went to an Ivy League school, you had success, you got out, you started doing things. And there is a big belief, right, that if you get the right education, you go down these paths, then you're going to come out in the world and you're going to just have everything flow easily for you. And yet part of your story is that you did all that, and then you started having addiction challenges and things that came back. And so I'd like to understand, in those teenage years and the trajectory heading off to Dartmouth, what were the belief systems that you held at the time about yourself and around the possibilities that you believed you were capable of accomplishing in the world?
I knew I was gifted. I knew that. I knew I was intelligent. I knew I was 6'2", 200 pounds, good looking. I knew that. I mean, people reflected that back to me. People were saying, you're going to be the first black senator from the state of Alaska. You have the world in your hand. You're articulate. You're nice. You're intelligent. You're good looking. You got everything. I had everything, but inside I'm damaged. You know, I use the term broken. I was broken when I went to Dartmouth. I was young. I was immature. I wanted to be liked so badly. I wanted to be accepted so badly. I didn't know where, though, from who. Was it going to be from blacks? Was it going to be from whites? Was it going to be from heteros, gays? I didn't know. I had no clue. I was so innocent in a lot of ways, but I was so damaged because I had grown up in so much fear, so much violence, that when I got to an environment of literally freedom, I still didn't know who I was. Okay. So I'd go off. Yeah, I had the academics. I can do the academics, but I didn't know if I had the social skills. In fact, I know I didn't have the social skills. And I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. Was not comfortable in my own skin. A lot of kids go off to college like that. I just probably had a little bit more of angst, of fear. And I had acquired some habits, some defense mechanism so I could navigate through life. Because you got to understand, the way I looked at life is I'm unwanted, even though I had a beautiful mom and, I didn't. But I'm an only child in a upper middle class or middle class black family. Mother, father. Well, my father's an alcoholic. He's a violent alcoholic. And so I had to navigate through that. I have this loving mother, but I go there again, not sure about who I was or defining. I wasn't comfortable in the black world because I like heavy metal music. I downhill skied. I played tennis. I was not, and I'm an Ivy League material. I'm not your average bro. Okay.
Yep.
So I had difficult. Then in the white community, I'm like, I'm all right. I can navigate. And those are most of my friends. I only had like 2 or 3 good friends in high school, and they were all white. Okay. So I could navigate through that, but they weren't academically at my level. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I go there and I'm a virgin. I can't drive. I got a Jerry curl. I got a jean jacket with heavy metal bands on it. They didn't know what to do with me. And I didn't know what to do with me. So once I started drinking, because I didn't drink in high school, I didn't do drugs. I wouldn't have got to Dartmouth if I had. It allowed me to not have to put the mask on and not try to say, what does this group want from me? What does this group want from me? What is this group? How should I act so that they will accept me? Because that's the thing I wanted more than anything else, was to be accepted. Yep. So I go there and I struggled. I had some difficulties. Yeah.
Well, what you also clearly have done is a lot of the work to unpack some of the patterns and things that have created these behaviors and belief systems over the years. It's obvious in the way that you communicate about it. And you've told the story and you've written it in your book and you teach it and you speak to these things. And the reason I say that is I can tell when somebody has also told the story. A lot of times I fit into the same bucket, right? I've told my story in a variety of different ways or told different things in a way that it almost just becomes like, of course, like this is what it is. Because we've done the work and we've done the processing and we've done the heavy lifting that's throughout it. And we can just tell it very transactionally now. However, you also really highlight a lot of the disconnection that took place for you in all of these years and that you did struggle completely. And so what going into Dartmouth and in the time that you were there, what were you hoping or focusing on as it relates to what you were planning to do post-college before some of the wheels fell off?
I wanted to be a politician, which is one of the weirdest things you could probably have anybody say. The senator. I wasn't thinking president. I was way before Obama. So I wasn't going at that level. But my thought was, okay, I go to college and I go to law school because most politicians at that level, I'm talking about federal level, are lawyers, or at least they were back in those days. And I'll live happily ever after. I mean, that's literally the thinking. Most people, I'll grow up to be a cop. I'll grow up to be a fireman. I want to grow up to be a politician. Okay. And, I never got to law school because of my addiction, and is it a regret? Nah, not really. Now that I've met a lot of lawyers, and I'm nothing against lawyers. It's just that, I'm pretty happy on where I did turn out.
Yeah.
But again, I wish I could.
It doesn't sound to me though like becoming a politician was even your idea, really. In some ways, it sounds like you were living into what the world wanted from you in those narratives of you could be the first Black politician or whatever, right? Yeah. Like, and in this area of your life where you're trying to figure out your own identity, well, shit, if I'm smart, I'm articulate, and this is what everybody's reflecting back to me, that I could become the first Black politician or Black senator in this state, why not walk that path? Right? And yet those weren't the cards that were held for you. And so it's interesting too, because you were living probably not even in clarity to what you wanted, but in terms of what you believed you should be doing based on what everybody else reflected.
Yeah, I'll agree. Yeah, my mom wanted me to go Ivy League. She went to Columbia. Get her master's at Columbia's Teachers College. So I'll give you an example. So I only applied to 3 colleges. There was like 160 that wanted me. I fit a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
But I only applied to 3, Harvard, Dartmouth, and Oberlin. And when the time came, the letters came, I got accepted to all 3. And my mother said to me, I'll never forget this, at the kitchen table. She said, where do you want to go? I said, Oberlin. She said, that's beautiful. What's your first choice? What's your first choice? It's going to be either Dartmouth or Harvard. And I'm so glad I went to Dartmouth, but I wanted to go to Oberlin because at age 17, I was impressed. They were the first college that let Blacks in and the first college that let women in. I was impressed by that in Ohio. Great college. I'm not saying anything negative about it, but I didn't.
But it was
the
nostalgia of what they stood for that you were leaning towards.
Yeah. Well, at 17, I was, I didn't know as much as I know now. And if I had a choice now between Dartmouth and Harvard, Dartmouth all day. And again, I'm glad. You got to understand, I could not function in a large city. I was too naive and too innocent to be in Cambridge, Mass, or New York, or Hartford, or New Haven, wherever it is, that some of these Ivy Leagues. The only other Ivy League I probably would have been comfortable with maybe Princeton, that I know the colleges now. But I'm so glad I went to Dartmouth. It was probably the best for me. I survived, at least. there. But me in the
Yeah.
city with my addiction, it had been brutal.
So when did the addiction take over to a point that it put you on the streets? Because you talked about being homeless and addicted for another 20 years post college. So help me understand the timeline and how quickly afterwards did this take effect?
Well, so I started drinking October of 1980. Within a month and a half, I was a full-blown alcoholic. Couldn't control how much I drank. Struggled through college. Got into a lot of difficulties, but nothing that I got arrested for. It didn't come till later.
Yep.
And then when I got out of college, when I finished my 4 years, my mom took me to my first treatment center. I remained sober for 2 years. Then I thought it was because I didn't have my act together. Now that I got my act together, I can drink like anybody else. And that lasted about 3 days. And that was in 1986. And by 87, 88, I was homeless. I was on the streets. And I was remained that way until 2007. I was either, homeless, in a treatment center, in a halfway house, in jail, or in prison.
So you go through foster care. You finally get adopted when you're 6. You have a father, though, that's angry and an alcoholic, which teaches you a whole bunch of other patterns that come into life. Your mom follows this path and you go down the Ivy League to fulfill and probably the promise to her. And all the while, I mean, here's the reality. You can grow up with an alcoholic father, but he also wasn't your genetic father. And so the genetic predisposition to alcohol, you may not have even known existed, given the fact that you didn't have a lot of knowledge in your family. You drink and immediately it takes over. And so you do go to Dartmouth, you are at an Ivy League school, and then you're on the streets, right? You're trying to figure out what your identity is. And so that's, I think, the part I'm really most fascinated about is 20 years on the streets in between halfway houses and rehab. And right, you said I was a pimp, I was a dealer, I did these different things as well. Like, that's a big chunk of time. And what's interesting is the nuance of what I hear you say is that you were actually really successful in that as well. And what do I mean by that? Right? Like, you probably ran a successful practice when you were a pimp and did other things. What do I mean by this? I'm not trying to highlight it as a place of valor. What I am trying to highlight is that I find that a lot of criminal activities and a lot of business activities and those profiles of people that create success, they're not that far apart. I'd like to understand your journey of both recovery, addiction, but what was it like to also perform in businesses and trades that are illegal, that do create damage, that there is violence and toxicity? And how did those shape you in the times that you had them on the street?
Well, I tell people to this day, I've always been in sales. Yeah, this is illegal and illegal, but I've always been in sales. So I got out of college and I went into outside sales for corporations. So I went into 3M Corporation and Kodak. Did very well. Very well. I was making $50,000 a year in 1985, which was a lot of money for a 22-year-old. It was a lot then. Some people would think it's a lot now. But anyway, so I was doing that. And then my addiction. So first of all, let me correct something. No, I was never a successful drug dealer, pimp, or criminal. Never.
Okay.
I can't. You can't with the amount of drugs I'm doing. You can't. Because what a drug does is it changes
because you were also a user, not
reality.
somebody who ran it just for the business. Got it. Okay.
Well, I try to. But when you're your own best customer, you're selling crack and you're smoking up most of it. And business is business. What you have is you have cost of goods sold, you have COGS, and you're trying to make a surplus and or a profit. Okay. So you buy it one amount and you sell it another. And, even in the prostitution, there's still cost in the prostitution. You got to get the rooms, you got to get certain things for the girls, I don't want to get too much into the details.
You don't have to. That's okay. I got you.
Yeah. But because it's nothing edifying anyway. So But again, it didn't matter because I'm going to smoke up all the profit. And we're still going to have a problem keeping a room or keeping a motel, you know? So again, I was never going to be, and I thought I would, because especially after the first and second time I went to the penitentiary, you learn things in there about the game. We call it the game. And I learned things. And then I said, when I get out, I'm going to do it differently because now I've learned how to do this, this, and this. It doesn't matter. And then the other thing is when you're under the influence of enough drugs, you're going to piss off people. And the people that I pissed off hurt people and vice versa. You know, I've told you, I don't know if I told you the story, but I've gone to kill people on 3 occasions, 3 that I can remember because I had a tendency to brown out or blackout. So this is Mr. Nice Guy, Ivy Leaguer, who's a kind and gentle man today. But no, with a gun, on 2 occasions, I went to shoot somebody. I don't know if they were going to die, but I was going to shoot them for sure. And then one I tried to throw off the balcony, 3rd floor balcony at a motel. So, and then people were doing the same to me because of my behavior under the influence. And sometimes not, well, you're always under the influence, but sometimes the influence is trying to get more money and drugs to get high again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You called it the game. You said you learned a few things.
Mm-hmm.
What was one thing you learned as a part of the game that you did not know before you were locked up?
Oh my goodness. Where to start? One thing is, never take a front. That's an easy one. You never take a front. Okay. On either end. So a front is where you give someone drugs and they're supposed to pay you back. And the other one is someone gives you drugs on consignment. Because I used to do that because they knew I could hustle and I could sell crack. So they would give me a package. And then I would say, I'll just do one before I go out on the streets.
Yep.
And I would do it. Now they're looking for me. Well, they're looking for their money.
Yep.
And sometimes they caught me. I had one time they caught me and they grabbed me on the middle of the street, like 2:00 in the afternoon in Reno, Nevada. He was with a little group and I owed him. And he had one of his guys grab me and hold my arms back like this. And then he told another crackhead, he's the dealer, to punch me as hard as he could. And the dude wants dope. He'll do anything. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. He hit me as hard as he could. Glasses broke, flew off my head, broke. The only thing that saved me was there was a girl who knew me at the motel. She was cleaning the rooms and she hollered down, I'm going to call the police. That's the only thing that probably saved me from being put in the hospital. They want to kill me. It was in broad daylight. I doubt they would have killed me. But, you know, again, that's part and parcel of that experience, you know. And in the end, and this is probably important, in the end, all it does is diminishes who you are as a person and your ability to believe that you can make decisions that are going to be good for you in the long term. Yeah. That's what I was my own worst enemy.
Yeah. And the thing is I would suggest that that's true for everybody. It just depends on how much damage and how much trouble they get in as a result of themselves. Right. And you ended up going down some of the pathways that created more damage and more challenges and trouble than maybe others faced. You know, 20 years of your life on the road, on the streets, right, in and out of these things, that's a lot of time. 20 years of your beginning part of your life was, right, not what you chose and not what your birth mother even chose, but you had a portion of it and then you get adopted and of course you get thrown into an abusive and violent situation in that situation as well. So now you've gone a significant portion of your life, the first half without drugs or alcohol and you learning and trying to find your identity, and another 20 years of, well, you now know you're an addict and you're playing and still trying to find all this. What was the turning point? What was the moment that you decided, look, it's time for Ken to step into this next phase of life and stabilize and get yourself back on track?
Well, I had done that about 14 times that I know of. I went to 14 inpatient treatment centers. Every time I went in there with good intentions. And the last time I got arrested and was sentenced to 6 years in the penitentiary, I went in there with that same thought pattern. And then, I talk about a month later, October of 2004, I got arrested September 22nd, 2004. And September 23rd is I celebrate. So I've been clean and sober for 21 years. But the month later, I'm lying on my bunk in jail, getting ready to go to court and be sentenced for his sales of a controlled substance. And I had a conversation, or I listened to God. You can put it either way. I really didn't conversate that much. I just listened. And God said that he would be there for me and that we could work through this. We can do this. I will be by your side. It's not going to be, but this is the important. This is the part I love saying. He said, it's not going to be without discomfort.
Never is.
That was the important part I had to hear. He didn't say, it's going to be, peaches and cream from this point on. No, but we can get through this. And I've gotten through the death of 2 mothers, biological and adoptive, the death of a wife, financial problems, the problems with relationships. I've gotten through a lot in those 21 years. That's life. Those are the vicissitudes of life. And so, but I've gotten through with that. And so since that point, I haven't had a struggle with drinking or drugging. I thought a struggle with those defense mechanisms, those acquired traits that I had to try to navigate through life. One of the key things, I want to make sure the audience hears this. One of the key things is I had to understand that the world of the streets and the world of the penitentiary were different than the world, what we call the civilian world. And some of the defense mechanisms that I acquired to protect myself on the streets and in the penitentiary do not work in the civilian world. Right. So I had to learn to remember, I got 20 years of prison and streets.
That's what I'm saying. It's a lot of conditioning. That's what I was asking. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of history, a lot of conditioning, a lot of muscle memory, a lot of cellular memory. Like, it's all of it.
Yeah, I know. I was there.
Yeah.
But it didn't work for me when I got out. Let me put it this way. A lot of it did work for me. I learned some great lessons in prison that have allowed me to do well in my relationships with others.
So give us one example. Give us an example of what you learned that helps with relationships.
100% respect. Yeah. I know how to respect another man. A lot of people who are listening, y'all don't know how to respect another person. You learn that. You're going to learn that on the streets and in the penitentiary, because if you don't, the physical repercussions, but you
real.
Can say or do things that you could not say in those environments. And so I learned that. And so I treat people with respect. Because
I realize this could seem simple because we're comparing normal mainstream civilian life with these other 2 extremes. I think I know what you mean when you say respect. And there's many people that I don't believe know how to show respect in lots of fashions. And yet respect is one of the things that I want the most. I want to demonstrate it the most. I want to receive it the most.
No.
But I don't want to lose anything in this translation. So when you look at civilian life and what you think a lot of people are doing that don't know how to give respect, if you were to describe or teach somebody how to respect someone else, another man, another person, right, based on how you learned to do it for survival, that also just deepens connection here in the civilian life. Like how and what does respect look like? How do you do that? How do you show that and demonstrate that so that there's no lack of clarity here as to what respect really is in the way you're discussing it?
Yeah, you define it first. And the definition is acknowledgement of a person's position or stature within a community, period. That community can be family. The community can be the boardroom. The community can be, in your work environment. It could be on the basketball court, but you acknowledge that person's position or stature. Okay. And so what does that mean? Well, let's give an example. What is an elder? In the Alaskan Native community, we have a term called elders. My wife's Alaskan Native. And what an elder is, or what it represents, is an individual of age that has survived and has a skill set to give to the other villagers or other individuals. We have a thing where we have in the Black community, the grandmother, the Black matriarch of the family that we greatly respect if we choose to respect that position. But she probably raised you because mama wasn't around. She was smoking crack, doing whatever. Dad definitely wasn't around. So she's the matriarch, and we respect and we acknowledge that position within the family, which is a community.
Yeah. So
we get out here and we disrespect people by not acknowledging them as a person. Let's just talk about, and I always go to this bigger one too. Children of God are the community of the whole. And that's how I respect another person, because you're another member of this human community. That's at just a human level, let alone whatever community that I find myself in. If I go into a boardroom, I'm not going to sit in the board chair's seat, because I will acknowledge that position. I used to teach my people at work. I'll give you an example. At work for nonprofits for years. And I used to tell my team members, rule number 1, never embarrass the executive director. That's rule number 1 for anything else. Don't put that person, because that person is the face of the organization, has a gravitas that represents to the community, ... That's how, again, you respect and acknowledge that position. They're the executive. They're the CEO. Check this out. Same with me. I'm a business owner. I have employees. I have staff members, I sign on the front of the check. I learned that one a long time ago. You sign on the back of the check. Acknowledge my position. It doesn't mean you have to be a supplicant, but it's acknowledgement of a person's position or stature within a community. So I'm going to end this pretty quick here. So what it means is when I come out of prison, there are individuals that look at me and they're like, oh, he's just a square. But you don't know who I am. You don't acknowledge that I'm a 3-time convicted felon, spent years behind bars. I had to do something to get there, bro. Okay? Spent 20 years on the streets, and I'm here to talk about it. Just because I don't have tattoos, just because I talk, with the King's English, does not mean that I cannot go back there. And so some people tested me, and it was scary for me.
I'm sure, because it also, to the point of cellular memory, you get, even if your fuse is really, 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 really long now, when that fuse is up, nobody wants to be on the other side of it, right?
Yeah, it's let me put it this way, it's longer. I'll give you one more example. The worst thing you can do to another man is spit in his face. And we've had this happen in the sports. In sports, we've seen this happen just this year, let alone Sandy Alomar. There's like 3, 4. Bill Romanowski. Whenever it happens, I always remember it. These are 10, 20, 30 years ago. But we had one earlier this year in NFL football. And what it does is I'm a man just like you. I got children. I'm a husband, whatever. But respect me by not sharing your whatever into my face. Yes, that is so disrespectful. but that's an example.
Agree with you completely.
And then there are usually repercussions to that.
Yeah. And what's interesting is to this whole even concept of respect, which I deeply align with how you described it. And it's about meeting somebody where they are, as well as also acknowledging, to your point, their stature, or inquiring enough to learn about it without making an assumption one way or another, right? Like, I think all of those things can show respect. In today's world of social media, however, right, there are no repercussions. There's no backlash. People can spout off and make comments, statements, beliefs, and there is no getting cracked back in the face. There is no other direct repercussions that take place. I think it's the lack of accountability and repercussions that have also amplified the amount of disrespect that we're seeing, in a way that if you put two humans in front of each other, there is a greater likelihood that they will demonstrate a level of respect towards each other than if you put those same two humans in any digital platform and stake them against each other.
True. I mean, again, it's like you said, it's the repercussions. So it's the
lack of them that lead to most people not respect. Yeah.
Yeah. With the veil of secrecy, when people go online, and I do a lot of online, and I love reading comments in specific blogs that I look at, mostly financial stuff. And, when I read these comments, some individuals will push back and like, why do you have a fake name? Why? If you truly believe what you say, why don't you have the courage
Bingo.
to identify yourself? This is who I am. I'll identify myself. If you want to contact offline, let's do offline and talk. But, to hide and then, what we call spew venom, because we think that empowers us. Our hurt, our pain, we need to share with you. And if potentially put you into pain.
Yep.
I'm not that person. I remember when I said when we first started, I am a kind and gentle man. I haven't threatened anybody in 15 years. I haven't put hands on anybody in 21 years. I hope to never have to, but that was a step just to get to the non-threatening part.
Correct. And yet, I also have deep appreciation for this. And why? Mm-hmm. Because I grew up with a father who was one of 4 white families in an entire black neighborhood in the late 50s and early 60s in Kansas City. Only reason I say that is the time in the world that we were in, and the violence and where they grew up with the poverty. All of my dad's brothers were in and out of prison their entire lives. And over half of them, 4 brothers, were killed as a result of direct violence connected to them. And my father was not. Yet, as well as I fucking do, he was the oldest of the 5. He took the biggest beatings, the biggest brunt, right? He made choices that got him out of it. However, there's still that part of him that I know exists, that if anything happens, my dad grew up on the streets. He knows how to handle and to do these things, and yet it doesn't go away. And he is a kind, accessible man, right? Yet there was anger that came through it that I absorbed and came through my life from my own traumas and things. But yet we do have the choice. I know you're tight on time, and so I want to be respectful of that because I see that we're coming right towards the top of the hour and you've got to get going. I could talk to you and unpack different pieces of this just out of interest and curiosity and the conversation of humanity all day long, because whether it's the abandonment stuff that took place, or the adoption that took place 6 years in, or the alcoholism and addiction, or the ways that trauma shapes the way that we operate, so much of what you're talking about and what you teach is universal truth. You just happen to have lived it in a more extreme way than many people feel or experience, at least in the damage and impact in their lives. And yet you've walked through some of the darkest moments, some of the most dangerous places. You've been in and out of penitentiary. You've been on the verge of living or dying at any given moment. And you've been on the other side of even threatening that life out of somebody else, right? And so it's all perspective, and perspective grounds you, but it helps you understand and teach this resiliency. And so in the work that you're doing today, you have multiple businesses. You're helping people with financial understanding and literacy. You coach, you speak, you're working through this all today. And to your point, I'm 15 years on the other side as this kind, gentle man, even though I didn't used to be. The cool part is I think you always were in here.
Oh, yeah.
Your words, actions, and behaviors and the needs and ways that you needed to protect yourself were what came out in the bigger ways that created this impact. And so with who you are today, with who you've already been, with this heart to love, to create impact, to bring people together, to meet people where they are, right? What is the legacy that you're going to leave, Ken? And what is, if there was a singular message that you want to leave this world with that you want everyone to know, what is it?
You go the easy, the trite one is love. It's that's a great question. And one of the things I many times will say is forgiveness of self. It was easy for me to forgive others. I forgive my dad. We didn't even talk about it. My dad shot my mom 6 times. Okay, we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about the man that raped me.
Dude, you had so much shit happen in your 62 years. How could we cover it all in an hour? Come on.
I know. And that's true. We need to come back on.
It's true.
With my new studio. But, the thing is, in the end, I got to live with me. Okay.
Yeah.
And can I be comfortable with me? Can I get out of an adversarial relationship with self? I thought I never would. I thought I would just either die in prison or die on the street or commit suicide. Those were like the doors I had left, I thought. And, to get to a point now where I can sit here and say, I am well. I had a tough day today. I had some stuff, business wise. Yeah. But we dealt with it, and I couldn't wait to come here, and hopefully somebody will listen to this and hear this, and it will resonate with them. And this is what I'd like to say to the audience. Forgive self. Let go of those secrets. Even if it's just one person, go to the pastor, go to a counselor who gets paid to not share it. Okay? But let go of it, and let go of this harbor of anger and resentment and hatred of some former self, because it's not you today. Yep. You're a beautiful child of God. I truly believe this. I've been given a gift, Brian, and this is my gift, and I'll end with this. My gift is this. I've experienced a lot of trauma and negativity. There are people who experience 10 times more, period. Yep. I've met some of them. Believe me, I've been on stages with them. Then there are people who can articulate and speak through books and from the stage well. The gift I have is I've experienced this, but I can share it.
Bingo.
And I can talk about things that you may not want to talk about or may not want to put into the public realm. Well, I can do that, and I'm comfortable with it. And the people who love me know and still love me. And I like me. And that's my gift. And that's a gift I believe I got from God. And I'm going to continue doing it until, I transition.
Yeah. Ken, I'm grateful that you do. My reason for existence at this point is to allow my truth to give others permission to live theirs. Right. And at the end of the day, what you and I do, what we teach, and our collective stories, which we still only know a fraction of each other's, frankly, they all point towards the same universal truths. Right? They really do. And it's our ability to be able to communicate it in a way that makes it accessible to other people that transmutes and helps them. You talked about hurt people earlier, hurting other people. Hurt people hurt people. That's where that statement came from. Yeah. And today I live my life with the alternative to that, which is that I believe that moved people move people. And I think you're moving a ton, and you're moving as many as you can. And that's all I think we can hope for. But I'm really grateful for your time, your presence, the stories that you shared with us today. When you get the other studio up and running, maybe we will do a version 2, because I know we just scratched the surface on this one because we had a tight window today and we rolled with it. But I know that there is so much more to unpack, not just in the lessons that you have from your stories, but in the ways that you teach them and communicate about them today. And I know we just scratched the surface. So thank you so much for being here with us today. All your stuff will be in the show notes. Your book link will be in the show notes for people to be able to access. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap?
I just want to thank you. I want to thank the listeners and the audience that are part of this show. You have an incredible show, and it's such a value added to society and the community of the whole. So again, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. I received that. I appreciate that. And for those of you that just saw Ken jump open and flip open his lid, man, he started by saying he was a survivor. And then he told us all the ways that took place. From being born into this world unexpectedly, from 2 individuals who came from various worlds, who put him up for adoption, to all of the trauma that followed since. Years in foster care, getting adopted, but then 20 years on the street. But what does he always come back to? It's about clarity and understanding and asking the questions and having the courage to escape the perils of our past, to leave the things behind us that no longer serve us, to connect, to respect each other, and to show up in a place of love. Here's the thing. If you can just share one secret today, it's just on the other side of the need to justify, protect, or defend yourself. You will find a freedom. You will feel an energy move, and you will have a deeper connection with yourself and with others. And what he left us with at the very end is profound. We talk about forgiveness, but most people talk about forgiveness of others. And yet it's easy to forgive others and very difficult to forgive yourself. And what he just highlighted is whether you're talking resentment, anger, fear, or really shame, which is the root of most of this, the second shame and blame exist, growth and opportunity go out the window. So if you have the courage to find it and stand in your truth and speak just one of those secrets, you'll take one step closer to freeing yourself and living the life that you can be well, like Ken describes today. But it is going to require you to flip open your lid and scan your can. We'll see you next time.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible. But to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.